How's it going? My name is Jefferson Clark. Again, putting these videos out there, introduce you to myself as well as, some of the things that I'm thinking about in terms of big events. Adapting to being more, being more open to receiving attention that I don't necessarily enjoy all that much, but, it's part of being in politics, I guess, is having that attention. And so here I'm publishing these videos, and as I go along, I'm going to get, I'll get a lot better. Balancing time between learning artificial intelligence, studying that, working part-time, and then also, following up here with with this politics stuff. But anyway, there are a few topics here that I wanted to kind of cover that I thought were kind of important. The first is this Paramount and Skydance merger. You know, the Stephen Colbert cancellation, I think, is a huge black eye for President Trump. Canceling people over, over their political ideas, and maybe because they didn't heap praise on him like he wanted. Again, it didn't matter. He still won. Again, I think it's pretty pathetic, in my opinion. In addition to that, I think he made some money off the deal by suing him. Again, pathetic, even though he won. And so, to me, if you win, that's enough. But to President Trump, it isn't enough that he won. He needs to go and, get money out of him because he won. And I think that's ridiculous. He should have just let it go, but he didn't. And that's part of the reason why very few people like him. So, in terms of that merger, I didn't envision them stopping it. But, understand that, it was something that was going to get done anyway. So, it is what it is. I'd read it, I read some articles. So I read, oh gosh, I read probably a dozen newspapers in a day. I'll read a dozen or so newspapers, as well as YouTube. And so I try to sort out the topics that I think are most important or most key, in my opinion. Not necessarily to everybody else, but for me anyway, from a national, global, and um, local, perspective. And I try to get both sides. Um, but so there was an interesting article that was, be careful what you want, or be careful what you wish for. It was written by Mr. Brooks. The idea was selfish ambition as well as leading a selfless life, balancing those two, and, make sure that how you feel and what you want are aligned, so you don't cheat yourself and lack effort in achieving those things that you want. And I couldn't agree more. One, and two, I always believed that selfish ambition was the root of all evil, meaning that you would sacrifice the good of others for yourself, versus taking them into consideration and thinking the good of the group is better than the good for just myself. And so I've always thought about that. And so, you know, going back probably 10 years ago, what I did to kind of overcome that selfishness, or at least attempt to, was to fix my want to my faith in God, right? So that way, that was the only thing that I wanted, and it would never tempt me to, you know, put myself before everyone else like I'm the God. And so that's how I always kind of look at it. But I mean, it's a happy medium. It's a happy balance. And, you just want to make sure that you're in balance with both of those, that is most optimal, and realize that your success doesn't necessarily indicate the success of the whole group or the team or the effort. So, the most important is moving the ball forward from the Democratic side or point of view, regardless of how the outcome might be for me, right? The good of the group comes before me. And so that's how I treat it, or at least I try. Um, that's how I look at things anyway. Um, and so, it really kind of puts at odds this leadership that we have, where it is a very selfish type of leadership that few like. Nobody likes it. They, I think people by nature are good people. There are more good than bad. And a selfish trait is repulsive to most people. And you can tell most of the world doesn't, is kind of at odds with the United States because of that approach. And so I try to look at things as more like a win-win or cooperative versus zero-sum game. One of the other issues was the Fed. President Trump's been beating up on the Fed. He wants to fire Jerome Powell, and he's picking on his renovation budget. And it's like, my God, man, leave the guy alone. He has a job. That's what he was there for. Let him do his job. You've already said what you wanted. Let it go. And now you're going to pick at him for this renovation budget that you don't even know what the numbers are. It's like, God, leave the man alone. He's got the job. When his time is up, then let him go. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's just keeping interest rates to where they are. And right now, the economy's doing great, or that's what they say. So why would we try to change that? But again, because Trump is acting like a spoiled child, he is, pressuring him. And I think it's ridiculous. Let the man do his job. Leave him alone. My God. Let's see, Gaza. Okay, so the other, there are 3 foreign policy issues I think that are out there. Gaza looks to be like a nightmare. I mean, that is a hellscape. One that's been delivered by our beloved Israel, but that doesn't make it okay that it is what it is. What's the end game? My God, are we going to kill everybody in that whole place? I mean, because that's really what it looks like. Just kill everyone, right? To me, that ain't a solution. We got to get something different, right? And we haven't got it yet. And so it's like, get the fuck with it. Let's get it. Let's get an answer here, because right now, seeing all these starving people is ridiculous, and it's enraging, actually. Let's see here. The next one is Iran. We had a chance at a deal earlier, but it fell through because of the demands of this administration and what they wanted, and I wasn't going to give it to them, no matter how much they made me eat it. And my thought is, we need to be able to talk with them and come to a solution that is winnable for everybody. There's no reason we should be having to bomb them for their nuclear weapons or this or that. I'm sure there's something there we can come to that reaches everybody's goals at the same time. That leaves them their dignity as well as ours. It's doable so long as they know we're willing to listen and work with them and demonstrate that we're going to listen and to, be genuine in our dealings. So we need to get something, right? I mean, we need to get some kind of a deal, because it's falling apart just like just like the Middle East, it seems like. And then we have China coming up, right? So we have China, in the next few weeks, I think President Trump's supposed to be visiting with China to make a deal, get some kind of deal going. It'd be really good if the administration would kind of share with us the details of what he's trying to get done, so that he can get people on board with whatever it is to help him. But we don't know anything about those details. We need to see them, as well as what he wants to get out of China. I realize he wants to open up, but you're going to have to give us some more information than that. You're going to have to tell us what specifically are they not doing that you want them to do, so that way we can help. Right now, the details aren't quite out there for us to get behind and support. So the more of that we get, the better. And the more of that, the more the population knows, the better off we are to, help him get the deal that he's looking for. Until then, people are going to be in the dark, and they're going to be like, yeah, well, let them deal with it. And, if we get a deal, great. If not, oh well too, right? we need the details. What are you looking for, so that we can help. And then finally, the DNC. Understandably, there's definitely going to be some, unhappiness or discontent right now because the party's kind of sorting itself out. The goal right now is to identify kind of like who's going to be here and who isn't, right? Ride or die. Who's going to be there, or who's going to defect and go somewhere else because it's too hard. My thought is you want people that want to be in the Democratic Party, right? Those are the ones you want, and those are the ones you want to build around. And let the ones that are iffy go. Let them go, because they won't be there with you through thick or thin. They'll run. And so my thought is, patience, right? We're going to need some patience from you guys. Once we kind of get a coalition together that is strong enough to withstand and stay together, then we are going to need your help in terms of funding some of those initiatives. The 3 initiatives that we've had so far, Fight the Oligarchy, No Kings, and Good Trouble, all were very successful. The oligarchy one was very successful, obviously. Mamdani's election was proof of that. But don't give up, right? Patience, and just trust that. So we kind of sort through some of these things that are going on. We're going to need your help. We're going to need it tremendously. And we don't want to let the Democratic Party go by the wayside, because we definitely need 2 viable parties in this country to be effective at governing it. Otherwise, we're going to end up with an autocracy like Poland or Russia. We're going to end up with something like that, and we're not going to like it. And it's going to take an overthrow to change it. So, we need to do everything we can to rebuild this Democratic Party. And the Republicans need to understand that it's for the good of the country to have both of those parties strong, and not just totally try to annihilate it like what they're trying to do. Anyway, again, appreciate your time. Jefferson Clark, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Thanks.